Hello and welcome to today's lesson. Today we're going to be rehearsing our story. We're going to practice reading our story out loud. But before we do that, we are going to answer a couple questions here about our story. So the first thing I'd like you to do is maybe on the next clean page or somewhere near your storyboard, we're actually going to leave this space under your story empty for now. So don't write down here because we're going to use this space in a bit. But maybe on the next clean page, we're going to answer a few questions. The first question you're going to answer is, what do you want your reader to feel when they're reading your story? So what do you want your reader to feel? So in my story, I actually have a few different feelings I want my reader to feel. At the beginning of the story, I want my reader to feel excited. So I'm going to use words that make them feel excited. So I would go ahead and write that down. I want them to feel excited. Maybe you can write this with your storyboard, but do leave a little space for doing more writing underneath there as well. Then after, let's see, in this frame, I want my reader to feel disappointed. And in this frame, I want my reader to feel kind of excited again, honestly, and maybe a little bit surprised. In this next frame, I want my reader to feel happy. So I'm going to use words. When I'm telling this story, I'm going to use words that make my reader feel happy. I'll use describing words and action words that are happy words. And maybe at the very end of the story, I want the reader to feel relieved. Because at the end of our story, we all sit down for dinner and have a nice time. So I thought of some ways that I want, some feelings, some emotions that I want the reader, when they're reading this story, to feel. I've thought about that. That way, when I'm telling my story, I have some ideas about what kinds of words and feelings I should be using in my storytelling. The next question we're going to answer here is, let's see, I'm going to shrink this all down here just a little bit. Next thing I'm going to think about is, what part of my story do I want to zoom in on? Zoom in. So think a little bit about what part of this story is most important. Maybe where is the action in the story? What part of the story is most important? Take that part of the story and stretch out that part of the storytelling. That part of the story, that frame, for me it's this middle one where we repair the boat. That frame is where most of my storytelling will take place. I won't spend most of my time telling this part of the story, or this part of the story, or this part of the story, or this part. Those will be shorter. This part, the action, the important part that has the strongest memories for me, that will take the longest. So I'm going to zoom in on that part and kind of slow down the storytelling. Not literally speak slower, maybe a little bit, but add more words and more descriptions and more action so that part of the story takes longer, because it's the important part. So I'm going to zoom in. So go ahead and write down in your notebook, which frame are you going to zoom in on? So I'm going to zoom in on, I'm going to tell more about building, or rather repairing, the boat and the adventures of going into the shipyard at night, and how we repaired it, and maybe some funny things that happened when we were fixing it. That's the part I'm going to zoom in on and slow down at. All right. And the last thing you will do is you're going to write down some transition words, and I'll explain how to do that in the next video. So make sure to do a little bit of this writing before you get started telling your story, so that you're really ready to tell your story. In today's work, you're going to record yourself. You're going to make a recording of yourself telling the story out loud. And you're going to listen to that recording, and it will give you some ideas for how you are going to start writing. All right, that's all. Make sure to watch the next video where I really give an example of how to tell the story and how to rehearse your story.